Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Daryl. Welcome back to this Python for Finance series. In the last lessons, I just showed you how to build a moving average and also Bollinger Band and show them into the main plot. And so far, we just covers the main plot. And in these lessons, we will work on the subplot MACD and also subplot RSI. Let's go ahead and get started. Before we dive into the programming part, let's take a look on MACD to understand what MACD means and how we can use these indicators to make our strategy. MACD is an indicator used a lot in technical analysis. The full name is Moving Average Convergence Divergence, also called the MACD, which is an oscillator which highlights the strength of the trends and likely reversal thereof. It uses moving average as input, specifically the exponential moving average as the input to derive the oscillator values. And based on these oscillator values, we can then confirm whether or not there's a change or whether or not there is a reversal of the trends. And usually we use the 12 and 26 EMA exponential moving average to construct the MACD lines. And then we also have a signal line, which is the line days or line periods EMA of the MACD. And by equations, the MACD is calculated by the difference between the EMA 12 periods minus the EMA 26 periods. And then the signal line is the EMA 9 periods. And we will also have the histogram, which is like a bar chart. That is the MACD minus the signal line. So you could imagine the longer the bar in the histogram, it represents a much more stronger signals. The most common ways to use these methods or to use this indicator is using the crossover. And then along with the associated bar. And so say for example here you can see the purple is the MACD and then the blue right here is the signal line. Here when the purple goes down below the signal line, there's a selling signal. And then when the MACD across the signal line, that is a buying signal. And if we refer to this graph, you can see that whenever this black line across this red line, that is the MACD across the signal line, you can see that is a buying signal over here. On the other hand, when this black line, that is the MACD crossover the red signal, the signal line, that is the red line, it represents a selling signal. And this is the easiest ways to use these indicators, and we will build the technical analysis based on these equations. And of course, there's two ways to do that. One is to build on your own based on those equations, and the other way is just to use the technical analysis functions from this pandas technical analysis. And let's take a look to see how we can do that. Let me minimize the functions first. The first things that I would like to do in this subplot is to clear the plot first and then use the figure design functions that we built previously. This is the figure design functions, just to make sure that all of the colors, the borders are aligned in all the plots. The next things that I would like to do is call out the MACD functions. That is the TA dot methods. The methods is the MACD methods, and I'm going to use the close price to calculate the MACD, and I will times 100 to make it to a percentage form. And here I will just assign it to a MACD. And what I wanted to do is to just combine the existing data frames together with these MACD data frames together, and then we set the index and put it back to the original data frame. And then the rest are just for visualizations, are just for plotting. The first things that I would like to plot is the MACD. This is the MACD. This is a line plot. What I need to do is just call out the MACD 12, 26, 9, and that is the typical exponential moving average values. And what I need to do is just to call out this column which contains my MACD, and I'll just label it as an MACD, and line width set it equals to 1, and the colors equals to right. And then the next things that I would like to plot is the signal line. So what I need to do is just to add a X over here, because these TA functions will return me 3 values. The first is the MACD, and the second is the signal line, and the final one is the histogram. And so I just add an S over here to call out the column, and this is the data from the MACD, which is the signal lines, and then label it as the signal, and then the line width equals to 1, and the colors equals to orange. That is the 2 lines plot. And now we have the lines over here. One is the MACD and the other is the signal line. The final things that I would like to plot is the histogram. And I also want to define them into 2 values. So for the positive value, I will assign them with a green color, and then the negative value, I will assign them into a red color. In order for me to do that, I just set a booleans for them. So if the data, that is the histogram, they already help us to calculate the difference between the MACD and also the signal line. So I just need to call out the data, and here that is the H, and which is represent the histogram. So whenever this value is larger than 0, I will set it a positive, and then whenever this value is less than 0, I will set it to negative, which is the boolean. So in that case, if the value is larger than 0, in these booleans is like a 1 0 1 0, something like that. And then on the other hand, for the negative, that will also return to 1 0 1 0, something like that. Of course, in this case, it's more like a true false. And what I need to do is just to use a bar chart to input few arguments. This is the bar chart that I would like, functions that I would like to use. The first is just to make sure that index will present in these positive booleans. And then of course, I would like to, with that index, I would like to have their corresponding bar, corresponding histogram. And remember, I also put a positive over here to make sure that the index and the bars are representing the same thing. And for this one, I will assign it a green color. And the width is 0.8, and then align it into a center. This 0.8 just make sure the bar are not overlapping with each other. Just save some room for them. And for the next one, again, for the negative bar, I will just change it to negative, and then for this for negative. But for the color, I will change it to wet. And finally, for this subplot, I want to show the grid and also show the grids and gray color, line style, and which are the major axes for both. So for both x-axis and y-axis, major and line width equals to 0.3. And then the set tickers, I'm not going to give any tickers over for the x-axis, so I just give an empty list. And I also want to show some text over here, say MACD 1226 line, to make sure we know which MACD that we are referring to. So in that case, I also would like to put some text over here. And in this case, so if there is MACD value that is not equals to 0, that means we have something that we can show. And in that case, I would like to put a MACD that should be 1226 line, 1226 line, and then put it on the upper left corner. So that is 0.01, 0.95, and then use the right color and bold the font, top left corner. And that's it for this subplot MACD. Let's see if we get it correctly. But before we move on to that, there are a few things that I would like to change in these programs. So to facilitate to build some strategies later on. The first thing is that I would like to make the figures outputs larger. That is for me to save some of the pictures, some of the back text pictures. So the figure size 16 and then 10. And then the second things that I would like to change is that instead of using a stock, that is apple over here, that's the apple, instead of the apple, I would like to change it to an ETF, that is the FPY. There are two main reasons that why I would like to switch it from a stock to a ETF. The first reason is it because for a stock it would be rather difficult for us to do a short selling, but in reality there are lots of times that we might want to play around with the short selling or to short something. In that case, say for example, for an S&P, we might want to buy it when it's going up for the future, of course. And then on the other hand, when it's going down, we also would like to take the opportunity to sell it. So of course to just buy it is going down. So in that case, apples might not be a very good example for us to perform the short selling, because in reality it would be rather difficult to do that in a stock instead of playing around with the futures. However, the polygons.io that allow us to download the historical data, it doesn't provides the futures. It only provides the stock, the options and the currency, and also the cryptocurrency. And then in that case, it would be not so easy for us to download the historical data from the future, from the contracts. So in that case, I just switch it a little bit to an ETF. That is the SPY, which is the biggest ETF representing the S&P 500. In that case, I just refer it back to these ETF charts, and then I download the historical data, and hopefully it would reflect the close enough to the reality that we are going to have. And because this is a stock, and of course the polygons allow us to download these historical data. So I just change it to a SPY and download the 2 years data, because I think future or the index allow us to play in both directions, but instead compared to a stock, it doesn't allow us to do so easily. And the final change is this. I just add a save functions inside these animate functions. This is the save figures. And what I'm going to do is save all the backtext result, all the pictures into this backtext folder. And with the names of the current dates, and the format is .png. And let's see what happened if I run this program. And here we have the folder, that is the backtest folder. Here we go. Oh, it doesn't show me the MACD because we need to call it out within this animate function. So let's do it again. And just run it. Put it over here. And you can see the results are now saved in this backtext folder, one by one, day by day. So that makes sure that will allow us to investigate what happens later on. Now let's take a look on one of the examples. Say the 2020 March 9th, and here you can see that this is the MACD that we just built. This is a subplot. Here you can see we have the white line that represent the MACD, and then the orange line represent the signal line. And whenever these MACD come down below this signal line, it means there's a chance for us to sell the stock, or to sell the index, or to sell the futures should be. And then whenever this signal line, that is the right line, just take this as an example. When this white line across this signal line, that is the orange line, and there's a chance for us to buy the index, buy the future. Excellent. Now let's build the RSI. And remember that in the Python for Finance number 7 lessons, I already showed you how to build the RSI functions by creating the functions to do that, by creating a compute RSI functions to calculate the RSI. But so I'm not going to repeat that. Please feel free to go back to the Python for Finance number 7, lesson 7. Instead of doing so, for this times, I will use the TA functions over here to calculate the RSI and plot it out. So if I move down to the RSI, that is the RSI here. Again, the first two things that we would like to do is to clear the plot and then use the figure design just to make sure that all the main plot, subplot are aligned in the design. And for this time, I want to show some value on the y-axis. So that is the ticker 13 and also 70. And so for the RSI is above the 70, that means there's a overbought situations. On the other hand, when the RSI is lower than the 30 threshold, it means there's a oversold conditions situations. And also would like to allow some room for the y limit. So just -2 and also 102. Just like what I mentioned, instead of using the compute RSI functions that we built in previous lessons, for this time I would like to use the TA.RSI methods. And again, I'm using the closing price to do that. And the periods that I'm using is 14. And once we have the result, I would like to just assign it to the data RSI column in the data frame. So I just copy what we've done in the Python for Finance number 7. So first of all, I just create an x-axis, and that is a list that provide the range for the RSI, and then I just use the plot because I would like to assign the data that is the x-axis, and then on the other hand I would like to use the RSI, and the color is white, and then the line width equals to 1, and that is the line plot. And just like what we did in the MACD, I also would like to put the test for the RSI. So if there's any values for the RSI, just print me out the text. And for this one, we are using the RSI with the periods 14. So that is so-called the RSI 14. And then so the color is white, the font size is 10, the font weight is bold, and then the horizontal, and that will appears in the top left corner. So I just set the transform equals to trans axis and horizontal alignment and vertical alignments to left top. Because the RSI is at the bottom, for these times I would like to plot out the x-axis, and this x-axis can be used with the subplot MACD and also the main plot, or you could consider that they align in the time periods. And I also showed you how to build this x-axis on the RSI's Python for Finance number 7 lessons, so I'm not going to repeat myself again. And just quickly go through this code, and then so first thing first, I would like to use the date times to make sure that this is the date times, and assign it with the format, and then assign it to a date times columns. and then just use a comprehensive list to put out a X date for these daytimes objects. And because I just want to show out the hours and also the minutes, but in order for me to do so, I need to create functions, which is called my date functions over here. And then for all these inputs, that will only show me these hours and also the minutes. And finally, I can set these x-axis set major formatter, and this formatter I will call out the M ticker, that is the functions formatter, which means we are going to provide a functions for this format. And for in this case, I'm going to provide these my date functions inside this. And there are 3 horizontal lines that I also would like to plot over their RSI chart. And the first line is the horizontal line that is around values 30, and that is a green line. That means it's a chance to buy. And then I also would like to give a horizontal line that is in the middle, and then I set the alphas equals to 0, 0.5 to just make it less sharp. And finally, I also would like to put a line that is the 70 threshold. That means that's the overbought conditions if the values go above that, and it's time for us to put the stock or the futures. And finally, just like what I've done before, I would like to have a grid, and the color is great for the major lines for both axes, that is the x-axis and also the y-axis. And for these times, I need the take parameters, and that is the axis for the x-axis, and then the label size, that is 10, which is the size for this date, and only show me the major one. And finally, just move on to the main functions, that is the animate functions. Just call out these functions, and that is the support RSI. Now if I just remove all of them and then run this function, let's see if we build these RSI functions correctly. Cool, excellent. So let's say for a few more days, and I will show you the result. So again, if I take out the dates, that is 2020 March 9th, you can see we just build the RSI and plot the results. And just like what I mentioned, I also have the x-axis over here, show the times, and which align with the MACD and also the main chart. But for this one, I probably need to change this name, and in that case, I need to go back to my main part and just change the name. And here we go. Just change these names to say, because we're using the SPY, so I will just change it back to the SPY. Cool. In these lessons, we just build the MACD subplot and also the RSI subplot. Now we are ready to build the strategies. So see you in the next video. Bye bye.